Good to be here with everybody. And welcome to Graham Bennett. Graham, I'm just going to give a brief bio of you, and then we'll have some questions, the hard-hitting interview questions coming up. So get prepared.
Perfect.
Graham is originally from Oklahoma City. I'm originally from Tulsa, so we can say y'all together, and we'll get through that. And currently lives in the big city of New York City with his wife, Alex. He is a manager of development initiatives at Reform Alliance, a nonprofit organization dedicated to transforming probation and parole by changing laws, systems, and culture to create real pathways to work and well-being. He is a board member for the E.L. and Thelma Gaylord Foundation and an advisory board member for Dorchester Capital, a diversified private investment company. He also chairs the Associate Leadership Board at Cassidy School, where he attended, and is a member of the Columbia Justice Lab Square One Committee, which aims to incubate new thinking on our response to crime, promote more effective strategies, and contribute to a new narrative of justice in America. Graham, welcome.
Thank you very much, Charles.
It's great to see you, and we visited a bit, but let's just jump right into the questions and talk about your USD experience. I know some people come to school and hit the ground running, and it's perfect all the way, and that doesn't always happen to everybody.
No, I mean, I went in a few different waves of that. I went to the university in June because I played football, so I went there for workouts, which was great because I already had a built-in friend group, so to say. And then I went to school with the idea of being a businessman, took my microeconomics class and realized I am nowhere close to being a businessman. And so for the first year or so, I really struggled. And in my sophomore year, I actually failed out of the university and was let back in, and ended up connecting with a major history that I thoroughly enjoyed, loved learning about, and excelled in, and was able to get on the dean's list and whatnot, and really enjoy the university. So I had a great experience in San Diego.
That's amazing. We previously talked about, you were trying to find your way, and you had a class with Mei Fu.
Yes, Mei Fu was my ethnic studies 101 maybe, and she put the book in front of me, The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander, and that's when I realized, wow, learning can be fun. I can enjoy this process, and I connected with the material right away, and I knew at that point that I wanted to incorporate social justice or criminal justice part of my life going forward.
Wow. Well, it's good to see that you're doing that. So you graduated from USD, and then off you went to Orange County.
Off I went to Orange County. So what I just said, throw that out the window, because I took a job in the steel industry and construction. So I worked for this company called WWF Steel, which is a structural steel fabricator and erector. We built stadiums, high rises, and data centers all over the country, and I was responsible for West Coast sales. So I did that for about 4 or 5 years and lived in Orange County and LA throughout that time period.
Then off to New York City.
Off to New York City, very out of the blue. My wife got a job and was told if she really wanted it, she'd have to be in New York 10 days later. And we kind of looked at each other, and I started packing up the boxes and rented a U-Haul and headed across the country. And
all right,
voila, New York.
Yeah, so New York, it's a big city. It's a little intimidating to some. I lived in Philadelphia for a while, but I grew up in Little Rock, Arkansas. When I drove across the George Washington Bridge the first time, I probably should have caused a wreck from just looking up in awe and just being dazzled by New York, and it's still to this day in that way. So how was it driving that U-Haul across that George Washington Bridge, or whichever bridge you chose to go through?
Yeah, it's a little different than driving across, I-40 in Texas. But I enjoyed the drive. But to the main point of New York, it rocked me in the beginning of we moved here at a time when businesses were starting to call employees back. NYU was welcoming students back for the first time since COVID. and it took us 45 days to find an apartment. So, we would wait in line for hours to see a 500 square foot place just to be told that someone had already leased it or whatnot. And it took a while to adjust, and slowly but surely it's become a place I love and hate at the same time. It's incredible being here, and it's a great experience.
Yeah. And so you got out of the steel business and hopped into a completely different field.
Different.
Yeah.
So
more in line with your schooling, though.
Right. During the height of the pandemic, I quit my job and started doing some contract work with some nonprofits involved in social justice and criminal justice, basically being a ghostwriter for them in a way. I would write their blog posts, I would write content for their emails and their websites, and I would do some other consulting work. And then I found a job with Reform Alliance, which you mentioned, but we can go into more, and have loved being here ever since.
Yeah, talk a little bit about Reform Alliance.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, we're a national organization working to transform the probation and parole system in America, mainly because nearly 4 million people are on probation and parole, which is twice the number of people that are incarcerated. So instead of keeping people trapped in a revolving door from supervision to prison, we're working to move people from the justice system into stability, and mainly looking at it as a solutions-based business. We want to increase success for people in the system, help get them out of the system permanently, and get them into jobs, housing, stability, and wellness. And since our founding in 2019, we've passed 16 bills in 10 states and created new pathways for 650,000 people to exit the system. And one of our main keys to success has been our ability to work with lawmakers on both sides of the aisle. We've had Governor Newsom to DeSantis and sign our bills into law. So we work with coalitions and local organizations and advocates and individuals directly impacted by the system to help, go about our mission.
Yeah. Well, if you can get Governor Newsom and Governor DeSantis to work together, you probably should be in Washington right now. So
I know, and we've had some luck with Governor Stitt in Oklahoma as well. So
okay, yeah. That's all right. So you mentioned that's great, and people can go. Where can they find out more about Reform Alliance?
Reform.com is where I would direct you to initially go. We're also really pushing our socials at Reform Alliance on Instagram and Twitter. And then if you text the number 81411, you can sign up to be one of our members, which is you'll get monthly newsletters, information about events that we're hosting, just keeping you up to date with all the things that we are doing.
Awesome. And it's founded by some fairly notable folks.
It is. It was founded by Meek Mill and Michael Rubin initially. Once Meek got sent back to prison for not committing a crime, which was popping a wheelie on his motorbike in a music video. And Michael Rubin, who is the CEO of Fanatics, and Meek were friends, and Rubin didn't really know this was such a big issue and couldn't believe that someone was being sent back to prison for not committing a crime. So Robert Kraft, the owner of the Patriots, Claire Wusai, Laura Arnold, Robert F. Smith, Jay-Z, Priscilla Chan, Michael Novogratz all came together, and they've been incredible leaders for us, an incredible board, and have really made us as successful as we are having their leadership.
Well, it's a great organization to be a part of, and a great group to associate with as well.
Yes.
All right, let's talk New York City. It's the city's so nice they named it twice. You talked about loving and hating New York, so let's maybe focus on the love right now. But
Perfect.
It can be a little challenging, I know, just to navigate the streets, to just live your day-to-day life. I mean, most of us that don't live there, we go there and we're amazed and blown away. But what's it like day in, day out? How do you get by?
To one of your points, navigating took me a while with the the streets and then the subway system. And I ended up all over Brooklyn when I was trying to get near Central Park, and which for you those don't know, it's complete opposite direction. Found this app called City Mapper, and that has solved all my problems. But it just took a while to learn how to get around and what works. And typically you can walk everywhere as well. But for me, the hardest part has just been, and I think being from Oklahoma, is just the congestion, the noise, the space. It gets on your nerves, but then you learn to just love that it is so busy and that it is so hectic. And I've always thought about how people around my age, no one, this is how I feel, no one's really here saving a ton of money and planning for the future. You're all kind of here working at it very intensely, having a bunch of fun, getting great experience. So you're all kind of in this blender together, just trying to go forward and make the next steps. So that's one way I look at it. But
yeah,
I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's a bit transient. A lot of people come and go, and yeah. So, what would you say is other than, I guess, maybe getting around and not being in, realizing that Central Park and Brooklyn are not on the way to each other? What would you say is the biggest challenge about living in the Big Apple?
Initially, when we moved here, it was really finding a spot. Of course, I could talk about the cost of living in New York as a challenge, but everyone is aware of that. And you're getting such great experience and so many other things that come with that. So I won't talk on that. But for me, the biggest challenge is the city that doesn't sleep. It always keeps on going. It's very fast paced, but there's not too many negatives that you can talk about with San Diego. Yeah, we don't get that incredible weather. Winters can be brutal. We had a mild winter this year. It's been raining a lot recently, which that doesn't sound terrible, but there's trash everywhere and that kind of gets around. It gets a little smelly, but there's nothing too much to complain about outside the cost of living here that really would make someone, I think, want to leave.
Yeah, I think of Oklahoma and the wide open spaces and the wind
Think about it all
blowing
the
down
time.
the plains, and you may
Yes,
not even see the sky because of all the skyscrapers, and there's not that wide open vista that you would have every day,
a lot
no
of
matter where
concrete.
you are.
Yeah,
Yeah, a lot of
a lot of
concrete.
concrete.
So you and your wife had the struggle of taking 45 days. What advice would you give somebody who's just, I'm going to move to New York in July? What would you tell me?
I would, if I could, I would make a trip out here beforehand just to get a feel for the area, and then reach out to any person that you know that lives here and learn from their experience. There's a great website called Street Easy that shows you available units. It's better than Zillow or all those other websites, but it shows you all great rental units, how many are available, when are showings, when units are becoming available. And I wouldn't get caught up so much on the exact location of your apartment complex or building or wherever you decide to live, because the subway is so convenient. You can get around so easily. For a while we wanted to be in a particular area, and then we just wanted to be somewhere. We
Yeah,
just wanted to have a place. And so that's totally fine. But I would say, just to get up here, see some apartments, see what it actually is like up here, what the apartments look like, and kind of take at the same time a leap of faith and realize it might not be that glamorous. It's part of it. So
yeah. All right. Well, let's see, what tips would you have for networking in New York City?
there's so many, due to the amount of people here and amount of businesses here, there's so many types of networking events every single week. One of my coworkers is big on getting on Eventbrite and just typing in stuff that he likes to do or that he's interested in. And there's always a happy hour. There is a great USD Torero Club up here, the New York Torero Alumni Group. And I would look at them on LinkedIn and then see who's a member at of that group and then reach out to them and message them and tell them what you're interested in, or if they know anybody, they know of any events, and see what they would have to say, and just kind of a word of mouth type of thing.
Yeah, we've had a number of events right down the street from you at the Galway Hooker, which is managed
Right down the street. Yeah.
managed by a USD alum. All right, so we've got a few more minutes. Let me just remind people, if they would like to put a question in the Q&A feature, they can do that. Let me just give you a couple of questions that came when people registered. You talked about the transition from living, well, how would you describe the transition from San Diego or Orange County to New York City?
Yeah, I thought I was going to live in California forever. And so I was a bit shell-shocked for a while, and it has been an adjustment for me in terms of I'm just more of a introvert. And so it's hard to kind of step back a little bit and get the time you need in space and quiet time. But once you get connected with friends and realize that the city is what you make it, it's totally fine. One great thing about New York is there's typically always someone visiting that you know, whether it's a cousin or a family, another family member or a friend who wants to come to New York during the holidays, or they're visiting someone else. That helped me in my transition because I saw a lot of familiar faces.
Yeah, that makes sense. Here's a question about prison reform or parole reform. How do you and the people working within your organization and the recipients of your organization's work, how do you respond effectively to the retaliation against bail reform in New York on the personal level?
Yeah, that's a great question. Two things, two parts to that. We don't do any work with bail reform. We don't do anything with death penalty, wrongful convictions, prison conditions. We are hyper focused on parole and probation. Really the only national organization that is focusing on parole and probation, and we don't even do any work in New York. Another point to that is there is not that much truth by any metric in any study that bail reform is causing this increase of violence. The act ended a racist cash bail system that disproportionately detained low-income people accused of minor crimes, people locked up in jail for months or years as they awaited trial because they couldn't afford to get out. Crime has risen in jurisdictions both with and without bail reform. And so that, while that's a great question, we'd almost, we can't take all of the backlash to things that we're not really focused on. While that's in our criminal justice field, we tend to ignore it, point people to, academic articles or research or evidence that, what they might have heard through the media or whatnot is actually incorrect, or we don't have enough information to prove that.
I love your passion for this work and the knowledge of the metrics and the data. I know you do a lot of research in what you do, so
Thank you.
Appreciate what you're doing. What would you say is the favorite part of your job?
Well, doing what we do, helping people get out of the system is incredible. But my favorite highlight so far is we do a bunch of economic mobility work. And one of those is our job fairs, where we invite, our last job fair in Brooklyn, we had about 5,000 people and 42 employers. And we also have an expungement clinic and all these other services that we had a barber, we had a tailor, resume builders, job interview prep, and just to be around everyone and learn people's stories, help people get on their feet, and find them a job or help them with a job, or a simple task of helping them organize their resume is very rewarding. So I probably don't do it for the right reasons. I just love the feeling of helping so many people in such easy ways, but makes a huge difference in their lives.
Fantastic. Here's a quick question from somebody who's tuned in. Were you involved in USC's Changemaker Hub or other initiatives, and did those help prepare you for advocating for those affected by parole and probation?
No, and Great question. I wish I did. There's so many things I wish I did at USD that I wish I could go back and be a part of or join. What I did at USD was I took a lot of independent studies with Dr. Catherine Statler, and she was amazing. And I really focused on mass incarceration, criminal justice, the colonial period, and looking at the policies they developed and tracking it through all the administrations to date. And so that is how I got connected to the work that I'm doing now. And I'm very thankful for Dr. Statler for allowing me that freedom to pursue that. That's
awesome. I also, I don't know any books on parole and prison reform. I'm sure you do. I would recommend you talked about the death penalty. If you haven't read the book, it just popped out of my head. No Mercy? No.
Oh, sure. Just Mercy.
Just Mercy. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm seeing the movie in my head, but it's a great book, and
great book.
Brian Stevenson, hopefully going to get him on campus sometime in the near future, but Just Mercy. Yes.
Just Mercy.
All right. Okay. We're nearing the end of our time. Now it's time for some rapid fire questions. We'll go back to the topic about New York City, which is, what is your favorite eatery and where is it located?
Raoul's on Bleecker. It's a small French restaurant.
Raoul's on Bleecker. All right. What would you say is your favorite hidden gem? It's a city full of hidden gems, but what would you say is your favorite?
I don't know if this is a hidden gem as much as it's just under the radar. And people from New York listening to this, they might log off, but the Staten Island Ferry, just because it's free. B, it gives you incredible views of the city in Brooklyn, and probably the best views of the Statue of Liberty. And it doesn't take that long to get into Staten Island. You can stop by and say hi to Pete Davidson if you want, but it's just relaxing and a good way to see the city for free.
I actually agree, and I've done it myself and just taken who wouldn't want to be out on the water? Maybe not in January, but
sure.
But yeah, that's awesome. Here, let's see. I was going to ask about you're a guy from Oklahoma. Have you ever do you eat from the carts on the street?
When I was a kid. Yeah, okay. Not anymore. No, okay. My coworkers get it a lot. I can't do it.
Okay.
Yeah. I bet you were hoping I'd say yes, but
you had a hot dog today.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm just wondering. All right. A guest has asked, how's the Rikers bread factory doing?
That individual has stumped me. I don't know about the bread factory at Rikers. I apologize.
Well, we'll encourage people to Google that and see if it's see what's going on. All right. Well, I think that is our time. Megan's going to tune back in, but Graham, it's great to visit with you. Thanks for the good work you're doing, and you and your organization, Reform Alliance, are doing. And if people want to find you on LinkedIn, I think you're on there as Graham Bennett.
Yes, for sure.
And we'll look forward to seeing you and the rest of our New York City Torero group soon, hopefully, for our next event there. And thanks so much.